pandemic, shaky economy, human rights violations, and riots. What might be coming next, and why is it all happening? Leo Knighton Tallarico, a longtime professional astrologer, will show us the planetary movements behind all this transformation. Is it possible extraterrestrial beings are a part of all this? Sit back and enjoy the ride as Leo takes us on a journey into the cosmos, showing us humanity's movement into the age of Aquarius, which will unite us all, even in the face of our world's challenges. And now, Perspectives from the Sky with Leo.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Perspectives from the Sky today. We're going to be going for 2 hours, not our usual 1 hour. And we've got a number of very special, beautiful souls that will be guests on the show today. Let me run down some of them. And of course, those of you that are, most of you probably have seen, there's going to be predictions today by me, by many of the guests. But the main thing is not so much the predictions as a remembering that we're moving into new consciousness. And that new consciousness, the transition that we're going through from one consciousness to another, means there's a lot of challenges in the transition. And so we'll talk about how we can work better with that as we go. But let me mention the guests we have on today. So we have on Deborah Knighton Tallarico, my beloved, and then we've got on also Ron Damico. Ron Damico is a local Sedona. He's a local healer and a catalyst for transformational growth. And he'll be with us, and he'll be making some predictions and some thoughts about this new year of 2022. Lauren Perrault, psychic medium. She's been on here before also. And she's really done some really great work before. And you saw her help people contact people they love from the other side. And she'll be making some predictions for this coming year also. Then we've got Pete Medium from Australia. I'm really hoping that the connection is good. He also does a lot of psychic readings, and he'll be telling us what his view of the future is. And then an extremely special guest, we'll have Neha and Gary, also another local Sedona couple. And they spent a lot of time outside the 3D dimension and kind of moving into other dimensions. And from that place and the connection between the 3D and the other dimensions, they're going to tell us about some of the contacts they've made with beings on the other side. So all that's going to happen within these next 2 hours. Let me start by saying, and some of this, those of you that read or listen to me, some of this will be reiterating, but I think it's important because this is going to be a very important year, 2022, and it's going to be challenging in a lot of ways also. By challenging, I mean those that are sitting on a fence between ages need to get off the fence and get into this new world consciousness. That's going to be really important for everybody. And sometimes when there's like really challenging events, fear just knocking at the door, trying to get in, flooding to try to get in, and you can't let it in, or you can let it in for a little while. That is true, but just for a little while, just to say, oh yeah, I'm feeling the fear. But when it starts getting stronger or trying to take over, we need to stay with the consciousness that we've all been moving into for a long time now. And we want to stay with that consciousness because that's the consciousness for the Aquarian age. And the Aquarian age is now. Remember, I told everyone that I believed it was on winter solstice 2020, right after the election, that we entered the Aquarian age, when Jupiter was conjunct Saturn in the early degrees of Aquarius. So we're there already. But, when you get in, just like when you do a personal transformation, a lot of times when you make a big breakthrough into your own new world, the demons are at the door, so to speak. Hey, go back, go back. So it's important to realize that that happens a lot. And we need to stay on our path, focused, moving forward into new consciousness and to this new age of Aquarius. An age lasts about 2,160 years, approximately. Piscean age began just a bit before Christ, in my estimation, maybe 100 years before Christ. And now we've come to the end. And we're in the age of Aquarius. But we're on the cusp still, very early years. Pluto, planet Pluto, in the United States chart, is a Pluto return this year. What Pluto return means, where Pluto was in one's natal chart, it's come back to that place. Now, since Pluto has a 250-year cycle, we as individuals never have a Pluto return. If there are some really wonderful medical breakthroughs, perhaps that's what we're all going to have, is a Pluto return one day, but it's 250 years. So this is the first one for the United States, because if you go 250 years back, you're going to catch us real close to that 1776 time. So Pluto return is a powerful time. It's because it's Pluto. Pluto's the guardian of the underworld. And so when Pluto hangs around, you can't stay on the shallow level. You can't just stay on a cheerleader level. You have to you have to go down deep inside and see what's going on underneath the surface. And it's from that place that Pluto operates. That's why Pluto's called guardian of the underworld. One thing that has happened in the age of Aquarius is that after the birth of Christ, Muhammad was born like about 600 years later, and organized religion for the first time has become immense during this age of Aquarius. And speaking of religion, which followed more with nature times for people, that was kind of God, goddess, nature. Religion has taken over, become big, and in the process, I would say, has exerted a lot of control over our minds and our souls, or attempted to. And so a lot of what we're doing, moving into the age of Aquarius, is moving away from organizations, whether that's a government, a religion, a corporation, a club that you belong to, a cult that you slipped into. You become your own authority in the age of Aquarius. You turn to yourself to know what the truth is, from your heart, from your mind, from your soul, from your instincts. Doesn't mean you don't need other people, because of course we always do. Aquarius is the individual, very individualized, not selling itself to be anything but what it truly is authentically. And from that place, making connections with everyone in the community, meaning unity. So when we look at it on a world basis, all the countries in the world, you can see how much trouble there is and always has been. But especially since the 20th century, it's been a much smaller world that we're all in. Because transportation, other mass communication, things have brought us all together across the globe. And so it's important that we do unify, because that's what we're being brought to do. But even within the unification, we keep our individuality, and we get more and more connected to we the people. The world is our world. I don't mean we own it or we possess it, but we are responsible for it. We are stewards of it. We are stewards of the earth and stewards of our human community and family. So diversity within unity is what's important to remember. And also important to remember, inside you, each one of us has many different sides to ourselves. That's why astrology is so wonderful, because each planet in a sign represents another side of you, another voice inside of you, so to speak. And so diversity within unity happens within us too. We acknowledge and own all different parts to ourselves, and then we make community inside ourselves with these different parts. That's why it's important for women, for instance, to own the male side of themselves, and for men to own, which is much more difficult traditionally, for men to own the female side of themselves, because then you are diversity, the different sides to yourself, but finding unity, not split. And of course, this is a wonderful sign of it. I got it on the wall. I love it everywhere. It's like opposites, those are things that are different, are meant to be unified in wholeness together, not separated and in war. And that's going to be one of the challenges coming up this year. You can see war is knocking really strongly at the door in our world. And when you know the consciousness we're moving into, you know we don't need war. Yeah, we need passionate discussions, and people get angry at each other. We don't want to stop that. But war is something else. War is the split where there's no connection anymore. Remember that. No connection anymore is what war really is. So yeah, we're going to be challenged. And it's likely going to be happening on the earth in a big way this year. But that's what I want to remind everybody. We can't control what happens on a bigger level like that, but we have ultimate control of what we do in our own heart, our own minds, and in our own consciousness. Part of the transformation of consciousness is moving into other dimensions, moving into other realms. And as we do that, we keep our feet in this 3D realm at the same time. Otherwise, why would we have been brought here? We've been brought here to be in this 3D world, but at the same time, now especially, having moved into a new age consciousness, we're operating with our higher selves. That's who rules things, so to speak. And the ego self is what is used for what the purposes of the higher self are. I don't mean used like used. I mean having a role within our world, our ego. We don't have to kill it. That's kind of ridiculous. It exists. We don't have to be afraid of it. The reason people want to kill it is because they're afraid of it. They're afraid it's going to take over. When you get to a place where it's not going to take over, you can allow it to have its place. And it can help out a lot because it helps you to operate in this world, in this 3D world. So that's a part of what the consciousness expansion is now, is to learn how to do that. And like meditation, being in nature, doing all the things that make you feel like you're connected. Because remember, a lot of what the new consciousness is about connections. The world tries to program people that there are not these connections, that things are random, not meaningful, that we're all separate, every man for himself, dog eat dog. They even talk about evolution being survival of the fittest. Well, it is in a way survival of the fittest, but the next level of evolution, in my estimation, the fittest now means we all are doing it together. Doesn't mean I'm beating you to finish the race ahead of you. Doesn't mean that if I beat you, then I get to evolve and survive and you don't. That's not going to work anymore. See the nuclear weapons we build? It's not going to work anymore. We have to get to a place now realizing that we're all in this together. And ever since the Neptune-Pluto conjunction in the late 1800s, we have been being brought together, as I said earlier, through mass communication, mass travel, mass transportation. These are ways that we're all being brought together. It's a smaller world. So in all those ways, we've learned to cooperate. Now we need to learn to cooperate in our hearts, in our minds, in our souls with one another. instead of demonizing and making something or someone the enemy. I remember when I was younger, the Republicans and Democrats used to argue with one another, but they certainly weren't as split off as they are nowadays. They don't hardly get anything done, hardly ever, because they're at war. They demonize. They go on social media. They go in the newspapers and talk about how terrible, rotten the other side is. No, we're all in the same damn community. We're all working together to make this community better. And we can't do it if we demonize. So I'm going to take us through a little bit of this year. I'm going to start with the next couple of months because they're especially important. Let me also say that the real cusp of this new age started in 1781 when Uranus was discovered. Before Uranus was discovered, Saturn was known as the furthest planet out. And Saturn is the patriarchal god. That's Yahweh. That's Saturn. So when nothing else had been discovered and nothing else was further out, that was the ruling planet. 1781 Uranus, 1846 Neptune, 1930 Pluto. And they are bringing in the New Age. They started bringing in the New Age. That was the cusp of the New Age in 1781. What was going on in 1781? French and American revolutions. Hello. That's exactly what Uranus is about. That's exactly what Aquarius is about. Uranus is the ruling planet of Aquarius. And the United States is based on, and the United States has its moon in Aquarius, by the way, is based on the revolution then, on a lot of what Aquarius is about, a lot of what Uranus is about. And that's of the people, by the people, for the people. Diversity within unity, equality. No one's superior to anyone else. You can be better at a game, you can be better at your trade, but you're not better as a human being. You're not better as a person. No one is. No one's worse. Sure, we got to continue our sports. They're fun. It's fun to win a game. But that doesn't make you better because you won the game. It makes you good at the game. That's it. So, that was the cusp, 1781. Then 1846 Neptune. What was happening in 1846? Karl Marx was coming out with his Communist Manifesto. Oh, don't say communist. Coming out with his Communist Manifesto. And in 1930, Pluto is power. So there were a lot of powerful figures on the earth at that time. Stalin, Capone, Hitler. That was the power coming out. But that's the power, that's the old power. Gandhi was big on the stage in 1932. He led the Indian people through civil disobedience with the British government, and he succeeded. And India had its own independence shortly after. Martin Luther King used the same way to advance our world. Civil disobedience. May have to do it again. So let's go through some of the months here. Here we go. So right now we're in Venus retrograde. We've been in Venus retrograde since December 19th. And we will stay in Venus retrograde until January 29. What's Venus retrograde? It's a time to really go deeper to understanding our relationships and, more importantly, our relationship patterns. Oftentimes during Venus retrograde, we'll have dreams of people from the past. They'll come back in our waking memory. And the reason that we're remembering them is because we need to remember the old patterns. And are they going on now? Are we doing the same thing in the same way in relationships? And I'm not just talking romantic relationships, all relationships. This is the time to really go down deep, understand our relationships, and release the patterns that aren't working anymore. Remember, you're operating from your higher self more now. That means it's important when you're in a relationship, even in the middle of an argument. God, this is difficult, what I'm going to say. Have empathy for what the other person is saying, even in the middle of an argument, if you can, because it's important. If you've got empathy for them, they've got empathy for you, you can work through that argument without it being a war. If you can't shore up the empathy, it's going to be a drag-out fight. So just keep that in mind as we go through the Venus retrograde. Also, Mercury will be in retrograde. Oh, yes, we'll both retrograde at the same time on January 14th. And it'll be retrograde from the 14th of January to the 3rd of February. So you can see from now until the 3rd of February, we're going to have something retrograde, and the two of them retrograde at the same time. Okay, what do I say first of all? Do not make any major decisions. Do not make any major decisions. Oh, and do not make any major decisions. Wait until they've both gone back direct again. You may think, oh my God, I've got this down. I know exactly what I'm doing, and this is the decision that I have to make. We're just not operating the way that we normally operate because we're moving through these retrogrades. So after they go direct, and then give it another 7 to 10 days afterwards, then feel more confident of making your big decisions or starting your big projects. Now, sometimes life just throws it at you where you have to do it now, and I understand that. And if you have to do it now because you have no choice, then somehow it must be meant to be, and just go through the process. But if you've got a choice, don't make a big decision during that time period. Now, there's a lot of, retro, taking things backwards. Rewinding is a good word to use during retrogrades. Time to rewind. Mercury, you're rewinding mentally. Venus, you're rewinding a lot in your heart space. But you're rewinding. So you're going to have both our heart spaces and our minds are going to be rewinding to a certain degree, to a large degree, all the way up until early February. So let me take it to what's going on real soon. Besides that, on the let's say this. Okay, so Mercury retrograde on the 14th. On the 12th, Mars will be opposite the United States Mars. On the 16th, Sun will be conjunct Pluto. It's just intensity. And then there's a full moon on the 17th at 27 degrees, 51 minutes of Capricorn Cancer. Sun in Capricorn, moon in Cancer, because all full moons are sun and moon opposite each other. All new moons are sun and moons exactly conjunct one another. So that'll be on the 17th. And then to make it even more powerful, on the 18th, Uranus will change directions from retrograde to direct. When the planet's changing directions either way, but especially to go direct, its energy is felt more, and its meaning, what it means and what it stands for, is operating more strongly than usual within our world and within our consciousness. So that January 17th full moon at 27 plus degrees also has Pluto within it, because Pluto will be at 26 degrees of Capricorn on its way to the Pluto return for the United States. I want to talk about this briefly, the Pluto return, because the Pluto in the United States natal chart is in Capricorn in its second house, resources, money, things like that. The Pluto placement in the United States chart is the military industrial complex. Big corporation, big military, big government, running our world as an empire, running the United States, running the world. With Pluto returning to itself, you can see what's happening in the world. The economy is splintering, no matter what they try to promote to you. The economy is in trouble, and there are wars that are really getting more powerful. Now, why are they happening? From a bigger picture, even though we don't agree with them for the new world, it's because there's some old world patterns and the idea of empires that we need to release and we need to let go of. The Piscean age began with an empire and a strong spiritual message. Rome, which didn't last much longer after that, as a powerful empire. Christ consciousness. We're moving into this new world. Christ consciousness belongs with us. The Piscean age needs to go, because the Piscean age has turned into control by government, control by religion, control by corporation. We don't need that anymore. We need to move out of that. But the Christ consciousness we can take with us. Sometimes we don't see it within the religions anymore, do we? but we can touch into it and we can take it with us, because it's important to have that kind of compassion and that kind of sense of connection that Christ consciousness gives us. So let's take it with us. Remember, we're moving out of a patriarchal world. A lot of what these controls have been about, especially up until 1781. Before it's like Saturn ruled, remember? That's the old God, Yahweh. That's patriarchy. That's what's been running our world. That's what we're letting go of. So let's move a little further forward. So that January time, potentially, I'll throw in a likely prediction there. That's a time where I think we'll see a turning point on the economy and a turning point on Russia-Ukraine. Now, hopefully that turning point is to the positive in both cases. But I kind of lean toward thinking that both of those are going to happen. You know, the stock market, our economy is going to be in big trouble. And Russia's going to invade Ukraine. Now, it may not do it at that time, but you're going to know for sure that it's going to do it. Or maybe not, but probably so. So look at that week, the week of the 17th, for those signs. Also, and I want to start including this in my work more, the planet Ceres, Demeter, grain, goddess of grain, is going to be changing directions to direct, and very much with the mother energy, the earth, the feminine, especially the earth mother feminine, is going to be in late Taurus at 28 degrees. Remember, I've been telling everybody for a while, maybe you don't remember, but 28 degrees of fixed signs is a really important spot in the zodiac where I expect events to happen when something touches that 28 degrees of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. So Ceres is an important movement, moving direct, especially at that 28 degrees that it's going to be moving at. On February 19th, we've got the Pluto Return, military-industrial complex. We ought to get a lot more happening with that. And then when we continue in April, March, Venus conjunct. I don't need to get through everyone. We've got a lot of people need to talk today. I'm just going to get the highlights. So on March 31st, we've got Moon in Aries. And Mars conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. Those will be important time periods too, when things start happening. Remember, at that time of year, it's time for us to get going, us to get moving. Do the things that we need to do. Start. Do what we need to do. Remember, doing it in the new world consciousness, not the old world consciousness. Don't let fear lead the way. That's the thing. Don't let fear lead the way. In a lot of cases, it's fear that leads to hatred too. So when fear takes over, your ego's taking over. If you just listen to it, that's okay. Don't let it take over. Now, for some people at this stage of their growth, you can't do it. You have to shut out the fear totally in order to be able to handle it. Well, let's hope that that's not where you're at, because it's not going to help you. Because when you shut something out totally and repress it, it's building up a life inside. And then when Pluto comes around, it comes out in big ways. So you want to stay in touch with that which has fear in it, because you don't want it to build up a power that will take over control later. You can do it. You must be ready at this moment in time to be able to hear the fear, feel the fear, and let your higher self, your better self, your new consciousness take over. Meditate a lot if it's a challenge, even if it's not a challenge. It's a time for us to do a lot of meditation. A lot of meditation. On April, just a little bit more, we're going to bring on our first guest. Damico is going to be our first guest, coming on in just a few minutes. In April, this is an important one to remember now. On April 12th, there's a Jupiter conjunct Neptune aspect in Pisces. This is a great aspect for really moving further in your spiritual growth, for moving through other dimensions. So I would actually make a commitment to yourself surrounding that date to do what is right for you to go to these other dimensions and go to the other frequencies. It'll be really alive for you in those frequencies around the 12th of April. Doesn't mean other times you can't do it, but you'll have a lot of help. The spiritual winds will be at your back around that time. For people that don't have that kind of outlook, it's going to be a very confusing time period for them, because Pisces and Neptune can be especially confusing, because what it does is it blurs the way that the linear reality is. That's why it's wonderful for going into other realms, because you're almost being seduced into those realms, because the realm that you're normally in, straight up and down, linear, things get all foggy and confusing. So trust that it's foggy and confusing, because you need to go to another realm where it won't be so fuzzy. Music is wonderful at that time too. Music, dance. Music is part of being in another frequency, so to speak. It's not a tangible one. Then we've got a solar eclipse, 10 plus degrees of Taurus on the 30th of April. And that'll be conjunct Uranus at the same time. So it's at the same degree that Uranus is changing directions at on the 18th, 10 degrees of Taurus, an important degree of fixed signs for all of us. If you have any planets that sit at 10 degrees, around 10 degrees, anywhere from 8 to 12 degrees of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, you'll be greatly affected. Now remember, people get afraid when I say that these things are powerful. No, they're powerful because what they want to do is to take you out of same old, being stuck, and move you forward with your growth and your evolution in consciousness. Yeah, sometimes they can be not easy because you're letting go of things, but the more you're holding on, the more difficult that it becomes. So see these as opportunities, because that's what they're meant to be. They're opportunities to grow. They're opportunities to evolve. They're opportunities to move into new consciousness. Not meant to be like, oh my God, there's this. It's not the way it operates. So that's on April 30th. And then Jupiter moves into Aries on May 10th. That's going to be more movement forward. Let's get going. No more sitting around. We need to move into new territory. And then on May 15th, there's a lunar eclipse. And that lunar eclipse will be at 25 degrees of Scorpio Taurus, and it'll have Saturn exactly square while it's changing directions. So if you have anything around 25 degrees of fixed signs, you're going to be more affected than other people, more able to make some changes that are going to be really important for your life around that time. So I'm not going to go through the whole year, but I'll tell you these things. The things that are really going to be hot in the world are the Ukraine, Russia. That's going to happen. China's going to make a move on Taiwan. That's going to happen. The stock market is going to very likely go way down. And Israel is going to attack Iran. Those are the things that you kind of know are going to happen. That's the old world, the old 3D world. That's what they're doing. That's what you're letting go of. That's what I'm letting go of. That's what we're not going to put we're not going to invest ourselves in it. The United States has been an empire. I love the values of the United States. I mean, I really do, and I know most of you do too. But it's become an empire and has not been true to its values. I mean, just look at what's been happening. Look at all the Trump years. We have not been loyal to those values. We've been loyal to the other values that the United States has always stood for: fame and wealth. It's time we stayed with the deeper values, because that's what's going to keep this country alive. No, we're not going to be an empire anymore, but we can still be a beautiful country with beautiful values. But those values aren't just for us. Those values are for the world. So remember, the world, the new consciousness is love and truth. Love and truth are what we can turn to always in this new world. And if you feel yourself going into fear, don't judge yourself. It's kind of a natural thing to do sometimes, just to feel that way. Don't let it take over. It's not the reality. Love and truth. I'm going to come back in the last 15 minutes of this show, and I'm going to turn it over to our guests pretty much now for quite a while. But remember, this is an important year because this is a year where it's off the fence and into the new world inside yourself. The commitment is the new world. The commitment is love and truth, not fear running things. And you're going to be fine, and our world's going to be fine. Because we can't change the world individually. But individually, we can be what it is that we know the consciousness is moving into. We can be with love and truth to the best of our ability. And we can connect with others of like mind and heart. Don't waste your time trying to convince people whose minds and hearts are closed. You won't go anywhere, and they'll bring you down. Okay, I've talked enough until later. I don't see Ron, but I'm assuming he's here. I don't see him. There he is. Hey, Ron. So coming on now will be Mr. Ron Damico. Ron is a master healer, and he's going to help us understand a little bit of what we're moving into in this new year. And let's bring him on. Hi, Ron.
Hello, my friend. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me on, Leo. I greatly appreciate this.
Oh, I'm glad I brought you on too. Take it over, Ron. Tell us what you see coming in this one.
You know, it's really fascinating. Everything you were talking about, and when you were talking about fear, planetary alignments, how to utilize the energy and the power, we literally, I've been noticing we've hit that turning point. We haven't even, it's not, you hear the term, we've turned a corner. The corner doesn't even exist anymore. We've already moved so far beyond it that we don't even realize that the corner doesn't exist. We just carry a memory that we are always going to be in some kind of an uphill struggle. And when you were talking about fear, one of the things that I've begun to realize that I've noticed in people is we're beginning to step away from what we perceive as fear to delve, and this is what you were talking about, delving deeper into it to see where fear is actually excitement distorted, but also where fear was just that voice in the back of your head that was saying, sweetheart, it's time to go left. You've gone right so many times. Let's try this one on and see what this brings forth. And if we can begin to engage from that realization, this world is going to do exactly what you're talking about. We will progressively align to a higher truth. You're talking about all these transitions. You were talking about power. This is about reclaiming your capacities or your potentials. This year is that year. With where you're talking about all the social injustices, you're talking about what Gandhi was doing, Martin Luther King and the like. It's that will to consciously activate your embodiment of your potential, realizing no one can rob you of something you don't give away. And this is about gathering all of that potential back so you can literally feel power-filled, where your sphere of influence, meaning what radiates or emanates from you as your spirit self, becomes so clear and integral that everything that comes into your sphere of influence, into your path of life, you begin to recognize it as an opportunity to get to know who you are far more intimately than before. And if we can begin to step into life in that fashion, everything we see, everything we touch, literally begins not to turn to gold, but we begin to see the gold within it. We get to see the opportunities. We can notice and recognize the strife, the conflict. You were talking about war. War is the deepest expression of a pain of feeling separate from everything else. And we think we need to fight to get it back. But what we're actually trying to do is fight through our own demons, our own pains, our own mechanisms of survival to bring forth our knowing that we are something more than just a survival-based being. These are the corners we're turning. We're moving now into a time where we have become masters of excavating all of our junk. We know how to look into the pile of junk that we carry so well. We spend more time researching our garbage than we do allowing ourselves to step in and say, hey, you know what? I got something beautiful going on in here that I'm bringing out over here, but I'm paying attention to this instead.
Yeah.
We're at this turning point where this is the timeline. We started it about 2 years ago, but we really have hit that definitive transition where now we must seek to grow the better aspects of ourselves. We must take these times to look deep within to what we want to bring forth and live as. And I promise you, as we do that, you're going to see and connect with anything that is dragging you down.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to know it. It's going to be there. You're going to observe it. You're going to acknowledge it. But the beautiful part about it is, instead of falling into it and getting lost, or like we do, we wallow in it. We get to take this beautiful space that we innately are, and we get to use that to bring the wounded child in, the wounded aspect of ourselves in. We get to nurture it into wholeness. We get to dissolve the pattern of the incomplete, fully drink that experience in, and then we get to transform into what we're meant to be. And like you were talking about, it's the more we come together, and I've been doing this a lot with people lately. We think we are so alone. We really do. People are terrified of the emptiness that they feel inside, and COVID has just exploded that feeling. But if we allow ourselves to realize that within our close sphere of influence, we have individuals around us, and this is the time to access this and honor it and to surrender to it. But as we realize that there are people in our sphere of influence that are choosing something similar to what we're choosing. It's the same directive. Everybody's just playing with it in a slightly different fashion. It's like I'm wearing my orange shirt today. You've got a darker shirt on, yet we're still walking the same path. We just are dressing up a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to realize. And as we allow that to happen in our local sphere of influence, what we want to begin to do is actively, in these times when the challenges come, is actively allow ourselves to connect with the collective of human beings that have chosen to awaken and have, or are in process of choosing to awaken.
Yeah.
You don't need to know who they are. You just need to choose to be in the same space or room that they're in.
Yeah.
And as you settle into that space and you feel yourself with that collective of beings on this planet that are choosing the same, you're going to begin to notice consciousness beyond human framework. You're going to begin to start tapping into, I call it the universal field of awakened sentient beings that are doing something similar. Most of us on this planet have had different lifetimes in different star systems, different species, and the like. Not everybody, but a lot of us have. That consciousness is the universal consciousness. We live in a matter-based reality based on this universe. There's a consciousness that activates and operates within this universal matter-based dynamic.
Yeah.
And if we plug into that with choice, by will, we begin to open ourselves, as you were talking about earlier too, higher dimensions, taking advantage of it. I can't remember what date. I think it was the 12th you were talking about of April.
Yeah.
It's you're looking at taking advantage of those moments and leaning into that higher consciousness, this planet and beyond. Because as we start tapping into these higher dimensional consciousness, multidimensional consciousness, we begin to access our true nature. That's what this year is. It isn't about fighting the powers that be. It's about owning the power that we've given to those systems.
Right.
And as we become uniquely autonomous, yet connected with and honoring of everything,
That's it.
that's when we individually become more potent, because we are in alignment with who we are. And then we get to amplify that potentiality because we're in alignment with others. We vibrate in alignment with the home of our nature.
Exactly.
And then when we do that universal dance, then we get to bring in how they resolve their conflicts. We get to tap into their experiential processes at a physical level on what they may have aligned with within to resolve the conflicts that they struggled with eons before we did. And as we bring that forth, we start to bring in a level of presence and awareness of how to be, that just by our presence and never shrinking in a space again, we begin to change the system in front of us and around us.
That's right.
We now contribute to a collective thought process that will create a vibrational pattern of higher awareness that we will begin to format companies, smaller at first, small groups, small companies, small thought processes. Religions will begin to come into a different state of alignment. Businesses will start moving away from the typical corporate model to a model that is inclusive, that is willing to listen and feel what their people that are working for the company's benefit are having to say and share about everything. The company will work as a collective with the people that know how to work the mechanics of it, and it'll begin to change. But that's what you were talking about when you had mentioned the stock market, okay, and economics and finances are kind of do their little downswing.
Yeah.
That downswing is because we're going to be drawing the power away from the old model. And with everything that's going on planetarily and the way that it's aligning, what's happening is we are putting the power where it belongs, within ourselves.
Exactly.
And then we are emanating, we are dancing together. It's like any conflict is an opportunity to see where our dance is misstepping.
Yes. That was beautiful, Ron. Very, very nice. I love you, buddy.
I love you too. Thank you.
I know you'll be back, yes, because you're a regular on the show.
Absolutely.
Love to have you come back. Thanks a lot.
Without question.
Take care of
Absolutely.
yourself.
You as well. Take care, everybody. Enjoy.
Bye. Where's your toggle, buddy? There we go. I don't know what those are not. Anyway, I'm going to bring on Lauren Perrault. Are we going to have all three of you on it? All three of us on at the same time?
Seems like it.
How come your toggle's not? You're with your toggle less.
I don't
You've come your toggle less.
It works. No control button.
I'm going to bring Lauren on here to see what we can do from there. Lauren, this is Lauren Perrault coming on. She's been on our show before, just as Ron has, psychic medium, and she's got some ideas about the year going forward now too. So, hi, Lauren. Lauren,
Hi.
can you hear me? Hi, there she is.
Can you hear
Good.
me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh, it's all three of us.
Hello.
Hi, Ron.
How are you?
Hi.
Very, very nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. We've been on together, but this is like the first time we've spoken, so it's nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Even
So-
though we're showing all three of us, the stage is all yours. I want to hear what you're feeling and seeing about what's coming up, Lauren.
Just right into it, huh? Okay. So I thought I would today coming on the show, and by the way, Leo, thank you for having me.
Mhm.
And it's an honor to be here with Ron and with Deborah coming on too, and the other guests as well. So I sat down right before we started, and I just opened up the channel, and I never really know like what's going to come out. And what's been fun for me is I did this all right before you started speaking today, Leo, and then I feel like what I wrote was just really an echo of everything that you've both been talking about. The thing that I first received is that this year, 2022, is the year of seeing through our fear. And so like Ron was just speaking about this, many people, I think, who are awakening to their gifts may be looking into the future, and what they see is actually an imprint of the past on the screen of the future. And they freak out and they go, no, I don't want to look at that. And so they kind of back out. But what I feel and what I receive is that if those of us who maybe are a little more practiced with this, we can kind of sit with that fear moment, like you were speaking about, both of you, we can sort of go through that. We realize it's just an illusion. And I really feel, I have, it's interesting, Leo, to hear you speaking about Russia and Ukraine, and then you were speaking about Israel and Iran and China and Taiwan. And I wrote probably 5 times on my paper today before I came in here was about Syria. And I feel as I was, and I didn't have like a specific directive about Syria, except that I have a sense that there's, I'm going to kind of bring in a couple of things here, but there's a landing place there somehow for, I think some beings who are arriving now, probably have been here for a while, but there's more of a congregation of this taking place now, in a sense, and it's happening there. And there's some type of a new development that's happening there, sort of in the middle of all of this that you were seeing. And I don't know if you can still
That's it. That's interesting. Keep going.
It just, to me, it's, and I, right now, like, let me just clarify that at this particular moment, it's about 10% Lauren and 90% channel. But what I receive is that Syria feels to be like in the middle of a lot of almost like bombs flying across it or around it. And yet there, I'm hearing that's the beginning. I'm hearing that Syria is the beginning. So I don't have more on that right now, but that is something that I'm sensing. The other thing that what's that, Leo? Uh-oh, can you still hear me? You still hear me? I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hopefully, let's see if I can chat in here. Oh, am I here by myself? It says I'm here in the show, so I'll just keep talking. I don't know if Leo is still here. Okay, so we'll just keep going. I think I can probably check on the Facebook thing to see if it's still working, but regardless. Oh, you're back, Leo.
Oh, you're back?
You're back. Are we back?
Yeah, you were lost. In fact, right now we still can't see you. You're kind of frozen. I can hear your voice now, though.
Okay, well, I guess that's all that matters anyway.
Yeah, let's go with that.
I can see and hear her the whole time.
Seriously?
Yes.
Okay. Gary and Neha, can you see and hear her the whole time too?
It's all good.
Laura, you move forward, hon. You can.
Okay.
We can hear you. Just go where you left off at.
Okay. So there are other pieces of information that I received. So this is a thing. I heard this, and this felt that this was from Source. And Source said to me, tell people to seek me, not me, but seek Source. And what I understand is like, but there was a caveat, which is, but also be discerning about false gurus. And this feels really important right now. And I think what's happening, and Ron was speaking to it, you were speaking to it, we've talked about this before. There is it feels almost like this exponential sort of lighting up of souls all across our earth right now. I'm seeing it in my work. People are coming to me every single day. I'm having this amazing experience. I had a prophetic dream. I had a vision. Help me. What's going on with me? And I'm like, you're not crazy. It's okay. Like, welcome. Welcome to the light side. And you're in good company. But there's also a call for discernment within us. And the ultimate message is it's great to seek mentorship, to have teachers, to have guides on your path. But the message is like the ultimate connection is within yourself. And I think, Leo, you were speaking to that a bit when you were talking about like not going on that superficial level, but descending and going deeper down in some of that deeper work in order to go into that, tap into that inner source of knowing. We have to be willing to kind of go through those choppy layers on the surface of our ego, our fear, our need to know, our need to logically understand. We have to kind of be willing to go through those choppy layers on the surface to really descend down into those deeper waters of that true connection. And so I kept writing down, I kept receiving, trust the mystery and be brave. And be brave. You know, we can't be brave if we're not afraid. Like there's no bravery if there's no fear. You know what I mean? So it's like the fear is coming, the fear is here. I love how Ron put it. It's like, you know, turning that corner, we've actually come so far past the corner, we don't even realize it. We moved fast through it. And in my understanding, COVID was and is, especially right now, it's like it's making its way through the world in just exponential rates. And what it's doing is it is pulling up our fear so that we have to see it and confront it. And we have to dig deep. And we have to reach out into our communities. We have to actually reach out and say, hey, can you bring me some soup? Or can you go pick up that grocery order for me? Or, hey, can you watch my kid? Or whatever it is, we're having to have grace for ourselves and compassion for others. It's happening. So that's the other thing. And then a couple of other elements I wanted to add, because Leo, what you were saying, I was just like, there was so much that I was pulling in that you were speaking. One of the things that I think is let me say a couple more things. The first one is I wrote, the star beings are here. This is not news to us, but to us on the show. But for many people, that might be like, what are you talking about? They're here. And their consciousness, I understand, is being born over and over again right now in children, and that the children being born right now are of a different consciousness. And so what I received was have patience, because it's going to take a little bit of time for this sort of new wave of this other consciousness that's being born right now into the babies on this earth. It's going to take a little time for them to develop their language and, you know, get emotionally sort of caught up with everything. But we're seeing children having they move faster. Their intelligence is faster. And it's really kind of breaking through a lot of the molds, I think, of what we understand child development to be. And this is an area where, like you were talking about, sort of the breaking down of the old way. You know, it's also in terms of how we understand the development of a human being. Like that alone, that itself is going to be something that's going to be really huge. And then I think one of the last things was many people in this coming year, are going to move more into their understanding about the relevance of their past lives. And by past life, I mean your spirit lineage, like where your spirit has lived, but also your blood lineage, your DNA. I consider both of those to kind of be past lives in a way. Sometimes they intersect when we kind of look back over the layers of time. But people, I think, are going to be getting it. they're getting it more and more, but getting it even more now, that it's time to sort of say goodbye to this old cycle of violence and exploitation.
Yeah.
There's, an exploitation, it turns to rage, it turns to violence, it turns to exploitation, turns to rage, turns to violence. And I'm seeing this in my clients. The message is so clear. It comes in every day, but I really feel that that's a big part of what's happening. One of the things that Ron spoke about, which I made a note about, was about, choosing to awaken, that all you have to do is choose. And that's true. I agree. I also think there's a lot of people who aren't choosing to awaken right now who are going through it. And I think that those people if any of those people are listening or receiving this vibration, I really want them to know that, you're in good company. And just like you were speaking about, Leo, and just like Ron was saying, congregating now is so important. I started 2021 not doing any readings. I had taken a 2-year hiatus. And by March, I was back in full swing. And now I'm running groups, and I'm developing a community of, I call light workers and light seekers, of people who are these are like normal, regular people who are they're awake suddenly. And they're like, what is going on? I need context. I need people who understand what I'm talking about, who aren't going to tell me I'm crazy or hypersensitive or whatever it is. And it's I'm seeing that, like, there are these congregations of people congregating into community, because it's time. It's really time for this shift to come to full fruition. So as much as I do fear and have fear about war, I, like you, sense, these tensions building to their breaking point. I also receive a message. I thought it was cool when you were talking about Sirius and the sort of, I think the feminine energy of Sirius sort of making that shift. Going direct to Taurus.
It's an asteroid, Sirius. Yes.
Oh, Sirius. Oh, okay, got it. So, okay, but regardless, what you were speaking about it was that it's going direct in Taurus, and that sort of brings about this sort of like strong feminine. At the same time as there was some issues or some predictions about, some hostility on the masculine. And that, to me, that's exactly what I feel, where it's like, okay, how's this going to shake out? Like, how is the balance going to be held here? Like, I'm thinking of Ma'at, how is this going to work out? Because there's two very strong influences that are going to be happening at the same time. And that is why I feel like this conversation and people congregating into spaces where they can be in this kind of conversation and listen to this kind of talk, and then maybe open up their own mouth and say some stuff. That is how we're going to tip the balance toward, moving where it is that we know we need to go. And I just hear that it's inevitable. I just hear it's inevitable. And what we're going through right now is it's the illusion of fear from the past. And we are coming out of replaying these nightmares that we've been living.
Great. Yes.
And one last thing I want to say was that the whole time that you were speaking, Leo, and Ron was speaking too, I was just so focused on my neck. And it was like my neck started to seize up, and I was like having to stretch my neck a lot, and I sort of stopped and was like, what is this about? And it really, to me, felt like, as a medium, like I feel deaths. Like, so I feel many people's deaths. It's just part of what I do, and it's okay with me because it's part of how I receive information. But what I was feeling, I think, was like really like lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes of people like us being beheaded and hanged for speaking in this way. And it's strong. Like it's almost making me want to cry right now, because I think that is part of the fear that holds many people back from stepping forward into the truth that they know. And I just feel like it is sort of this consciousness saying, we're done with that. That's not happening anymore. So I really, I'm with you in the sense of like, yeah, it's shaky right now. We're on thin ice, but okay. We also have, there's many forces at work, and it's not predetermined. Like, we also have will here, and we also have influence when we come together and we do this type of speaking and sharing and bringing people into the conversation. So, yeah, that's
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Lauren. That was really enlightening, and I really appreciate the energy that you're bringing to the show too. Really from your heart, very nice. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you
you're
so
a
much.
regular, and you're going to be coming back, right?
Absolutely, anytime.
Okay. Take care of yourself.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Bye. And Deborah, not if you're right. Deborah's coming on next, and then we're bringing on Neon Gary right after that. And hopefully Pete Medium from Australia. Stay tuned. We'll see. Deborah, going to bring you right on.
Hello there.
There you are. Hi.
Hey, everybody.
How are you doing?
Just trying to get rid of the screen over here. Let me see if I can. Okay, there we go.
Let me say this real quickly, Deb. I've been talking about Venus and Venus retrograde and everything. So Deborah's going to enlighten us more on the Venus cycles, aren't you? That's part of what you're going to say. Okay.
I think I'm going to start with that. I
Okay.
wasn't originally, but it's kind of this has been such an amazing, wonderful show. I just want to thank everyone that's been here, Leo and Lauren and Ron. And everything is just like, it is such a beautiful weaving together of our energies and what we've all received. So I'm going to piggyback on what Lauren was talking about at the end, because this has been something that's been coming to me over and over. I mean, waking up in the middle of the night, that kind of thing, downloads, is about the power of this new Venus cycle, which actually right now Venus is in the underworld. Actually, no, she's in between her different cycles. So she's in her metamorphosis, her transformation time, as she's retrograde. So Venus is retrograde right now in Capricorn, and Venus has been Capricorn for quite a while, and will be, I think, for a couple more months.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is we're moving from the old Venus cycle into the new Venus cycle. And the new Venus cycle will be oversold for the next 18 months by Capricorn and the Capricorn goddess. So what is happening is this is going to be, so the next 18 months in this year is going to be a profound time to do very deep ancestral work. And this has been coming to me for a very long time. And this is where I'm starting to move my own work in this direction more. And my new offering that I'm going to be doing in the next few weeks is going to be all around taking people through the gateways and dismantling, because to make this shift into the new consciousness, we have to do deep inner work. And anything we see outside of ourselves is always a reflection of what's in us. So this is going to be a profound opportunity to clear the old patriarchal consciousness as it's stored in our chakras, in our cells, in our consciousness, in our hearts, and our souls. Clear past lives, star lineage lives, earth lineage lives, because, Capricorn is also the earth. So it's also going to be about lifting of the ancient earth records, like actually working with lifting the records, because our Mother Earth holds the memories of everything that has happened on our planet since the beginning of time. And it's going to be a time to lift those earth records from the earth and within ourselves and our ancestral lineages, our familial line, our childhood. So Capricorn is very much about that. She's about the ancestors, the goddess, the Capricorn goddess. She's the wise woman, the ancient ones, you know, the ancient guardians of the earth that have been watching over this earth and feeling and experiencing everything that's been going on in this earth. They're here, and we need to attune and help in this cleansing and purification of those energies, that old consciousness that doesn't serve us anymore. So this year and this next 18-month cycle of Venus is going to be this opportunity for us to really do this very deep inner work, to clear our lineages, to dismantle the patriarchal consciousness within us. It's not just about what's outside. It's not just about men. It's this consciousness, because before that it was matriarchal consciousness. So it's really about dismantling any kind of hierarchy, and every being coming into sovereignty, direct connection with source, direct connection with the earth and their own gifts, their own powers, and those gifts that, you know, that they were persecuted for in lifetime. So that's why I say there's going to be a lot of energy around clearing past lifetimes and reclaiming the gifts. So the first part of the Venus cycle, the first 8 months of the Venus cycle, is about, it's when the moon and Venus join together in the waning moon, crescent moon in the morning sky. And it's the time of the dismantling, it's the descent of Inanna into the underworld. Okay, so she's taking off, she's dismantling, she's removing. And then we go into the underworld. And that's going to be in like the end of August and September, November, December. We're going to be in the underworld. Venus will be in the underworld, not visible in the sky. So that's going to be a really deep time to do shadow work, inner child work, and even more past life work. Then at the end of the year, and then the next year, is when Venus will rise up in the morning, in the evening sky. And that's when we're going to start reclaiming. We have to do the dismantling and the clearing first, and the healing and the transforming and transmuting. And then we're going to be able to start reclaiming the gifts from our star lineages, our earth lineages, our past lives, all those gifts. So that's my that's what's been just downloading like crazy. Then the other thing that's been coming is the numerological energies, and I wanted to focus on that for a few minutes now. So the year 2022, it's 2 times 3, right? It's the 2 vibration is really strong. So the 2 vibration, right? 2 vibration is, and also that's the Pisces sacred geometry. It's all about polarity and relationship. And on our planet, as most of us are aware, we're aware of how polarized things are. And this year is a big opportunity with all these 2s and 6 vibration to actually do that inner work again of healing our own inner polarities, those opposing energies within us, really working with the masculine and feminine within us, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, and that coming together, that balance, that harmonizing of the polarities, the oppositions, and actually bringing them into union. So polarity reveals the conflicts, but it's also, and it reveals what has been separated, as I think some of us have been talking about, but it also brings you into that longing for union and oneness. So a lot of this year is going to be about balancing those polarities within us and coming into partnership, peace, Also in this numerological number, I just want to say also 2 is also the priestess archetype in the tarot. It's the high priestess. And she also is about the balancing of, she's the mediator between the worlds, between the conscious and the unconscious, the spirit and the material world. She is the mediator between the worlds, right? And it's going to be that energy of that balancing of the light and dark. All these energies keep coming back to healing and unification and balancing the polarities, and being the open channel, being that direct, opening our own channels to source, rather than, as Lauren was talking about, relying on external sources, but to really come into that sovereign place. The high priestess helps us to go within, to go deep within to the mysteries. And the other thing I want to talk about from my work with the elders in Colombia and the Mother Earth Restoration Trust is the number 2226. It also points us to reciprocity and living and being in sacred relationship with all that is. Being in sacred relationship within ourselves, with our own self, with each other, with our Mother Earth, with our planet. So reciprocity is being in that conscious relationship always, and having that awareness that we're always in relationship and partnership, and to really bringing our awareness to that. And also complementarity. How can we complement each other? How can we work together? How can we come into mutually beneficial cooperation and partnerships on our planet and community? And it all goes back to sacred relationship. And the number 22, which is part of the 2022. 22 is a master vibration, a master number. And it's the square in sacred geometry. So it has a lot to do with stability, building forms, grounding inspirations. So this year is also a time to ground our inspirations in a really practical way, for the greatest good of all beings. Because since it's 22 is a master number, it's about the greatest good. So whatever you're building in your life, is it for the greatest good of the earth, of humanity, of all life? Ask yourself those questions. And then we move into the 6th vibration. And the 6th vibration is the Lover's card, the Lover's energy. So 6 is also about organic balance. And it's the sacred geometry of the 6-pointed star, the Merkaba, the star tetrahedron. So this year is going to be about, again, it all comes back to that partnership, balance, sacred marriage. If you think of the Star of David, the Merkaba, it's the upward pointing triangle and the lower pointing triangle coming together, pointing to heaven and earth. So a lot of this year is about balancing within us and in our lives on our planet, heaven, the sky, the universe, the starry realms with the earth, and that inner balance, that sacred marriage within of masculine, feminine, light, dark, as above, so below, yes, as within, so without, and realizing that everything is a divine reflection. Anything we see outside of us is a reflection of what is within us. So it is an amazing opportunity this year to really start embodying these energies of the sacred marriage and doing that inner work again of the sacred marriage. And this year, because it's a Lover's card too, I'm going to wrap it up in just a minute, okay. Leo. I know there's more people wanting to come on, yes, but exactly. Six is also, the Lovers. There's going to be a lot of focus on our relationships with ourselves and with each other, our partnerships, And it may be a time when you might leave a relationship that's unhealthy, that's not working, because equality is going to be more important than ever, and standing in your power and your sovereignty. And then it's also going to be an opportunity for relationships to go to a whole new level, to deepen those relationships that are healthy and based in equality and the energies of the new earth. And it's also the vibration connected to the family, to our home. And so it's going to be a time to really consecrate our own inner temple of our bodies and our own inner home, where in our homes we live in, and the home of Gaia. And more than anything, this is what I want to end with, is more than anything, 6 is the vibration of love. And love is the force in the universe that brings everything together. And this is going to be a vibration of love this year. And hopefully it will be a huge activation that will just carry it farther and farther into the future. So it's going to be a time to keep coming back to love over and over and over again, to keep whatever happens in the outer world, in your relationships, in your own inner work, to come back to love, because love is what brings everything together. Love is what unifies. Love is the greatest vibration of the universe. So this year, may we really come into that love vibration, embody that love vibration and that sacred inner union on our planet, and bring everything back to love and compassion.
Thank you, Debbie. You did a really good job of showing us the Venus retrograde too. So much concentration being on relationship now. You spent a lot of time showing us that, and of course, love being what brings all those relationships together. That was beautiful. Thank you very much, Ann.
Thank you, everyone.
We are now going to move to a new guest on our show. We haven't had on before. We're going to bring on Nia and Gary, and they also live in Sedona, and they are going to let us know about. Well, remember, I promised you all that we'd have someone come on today that was going to let us know about ETs, beings that are not necessarily born on the earth, maybe from other dimensions. They're going to let us know how they see this all. And I'm going to welcome you right now. Nia and Gary, hi.
Hi, how do you do?
Oh, pretty good. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having us.
How long have you guys been living in Sedona?
We've been here about 5 years.
Yeah. So you're kind of a newbies like we are too.
Yes,
we're really
so many of us have been drawn here.
That's it.
Thank you for all the beautiful comments on the show here, for the beautiful information. You want to go ahead?
Thank you, Nia. Gary?
We're honored to be on your show. Thank you for asking us.
Pleasure having you on. Let me ask you this then straight out then. Let's start right where we're going to go. Either one of you, tell our listeners, our viewers, it's funny because I call it a radio show, but they're seeing us, so it's not really radio. It's not TV either. What is this? I don't know. Streaming. Tell us guys about what experiences you've had with ETs, if that's the right word, or those on the other side from other dimensions. Tell me what your experiences have been in that world.
ETs, good. We refer to them as intergalactics. They are here. They're here to help us. I know for sure that there's approximately 1,800 different species of intergalactics here to help us in our role as Father's role within the great shift that's taking place right now. We're in full swing. This actually started back in the 40s. And it's not something that is current. It's not an event. It's an ongoing process. Our purpose for being here, even though we have our own journeys singularly, it's like you were talking about the stream of consciousness, the collective consciousness. Our our main purpose here is the ascension of Mother Earth. You were talking a lot about the age of Aquarius, coming out of the Piscean age, the age of masculine dominance. The age of Aquarius is all about the divine feminine, bringing awareness to that. And as you guys had stated before, it's the balance of the divine feminine and the divine masculine within us. This energy that we are anchoring, this light that we are anchoring within Mother Earth, is what allows her to ascend. And this is incredibly important on Father's plan, the promise of the new day, the promise of a new way. This is essential. And that's why we have so much intergalactic help, is because this has to happen. This is not just the universe, this is the multiverse. And within our own journey, we're adding to that collective brand of holding that light and that space in Mother Earth to make it possible for her to ascend.
Yeah.
Have either one of you tell our viewers, listeners, about experiences that you've actually had with the intergalactic beings? Like when was the first time, either one of you? Gary, let me start with you. When was the first time that you actually had a connection with one of the intergalactic beings, and what was it like?
This was probably about 10 years ago. I've had a lot of connections, mainly with the Arcturians and the Sirians. We're both from Sirius B star complex, our spirit selves are. And I did have an event that was determined to be an abduction back in Ohio where I lived. And what had happened, about 2:30 in the morning, I always look to the southern sky because that's where Sirius is. And there was this huge diffused light, and it was a cloud that had these 3 huge lights in it. And I wanted to grab my camera because this isn't real. This can't be real. And
what time of day was it, Gary?
This was about 2:00 in the morning.
Okay.
And looking towards the south, and I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to grab my camera. When I finally got inside, I had lost 22 minutes because I always looked at my clock when I came outside, just because, okay, what the hell am I doing up at 2:00 in the morning? But I had lost 22 minutes. And it was shortly after that I had gone to the Roswell Ufo Festival. And this was incredible. They had a panel discussion, and they were taking fielding questions from the audience. And my question was, what percentage of abductees get to see their own offspring, the hybrids that they are creating? And the answer was a resounding 95% of abductees get to meet their offspring, their children, who are among us today. It's kind of funny, everybody's waiting on disclosure. Well, Truman gave us disclosure. When he set up that committee to investigate the appearance of the UFOs. So we've had disclosure. There's no more waiting on it. They're here to help us. We shouldn't fear them.
Let me speak to the abduction thing, because that's interesting, and some people could get afraid. But I interviewed Dr. John Mack, who was head of psychiatry in Harvard back in the early 2000s, and he had just written a book, Passport to the Cosmos, I believe it's called. And he was so doubtful about people who had said they'd been abducted. He was a psychiatrist, so he thought if he went out and he interviewed all these people around the world, he'd find out that they were all crazy. He went out there and he interviewed people all over the world, and he had just the opposite reaction. Remember, this is a psychiatrist now. He said that all of them had very similar stories and all of them were believable. The only thing that he didn't know was whether they actually, on the physical plane, contacted them or whether it was on another dimension. dimension. That was the only doubt that he had, that everything he said was absolutely real. And he also mentioned in his book about what you're starting to say about the hybrids. And so the people are taken, on the ships or wherever, and then they're being worked on in order to create new beings. That's what I'm assuming is what you're saying. Speak more to that, and tell our listeners, viewers, about how that is something that's for the good of us ultimately.
I can't remember which one of you had mentioned this different consciousness that's being brought in. Yes. The children that are being born here within the last 10, 12 years, they are awake. Coming right out of the womb, they're awake. They don't have the amnesia that we were giving. And this is incredibly crucial, because these hybrids that are mixing in with us, they have that consciousness of the higher dimensional quality and intergalactic quality as well. It's an awareness, it's a consciousness that is way beyond anything that we have known in this incarnation as a human species on this planet. We're not the first people here on this planet, obviously, but it's this higher consciousness. This is what's really, really, really going to facilitate Mother Earth's ascension, where everybody's working in unison, everybody's working in concert with each other, whether they realize it or not.
Right.
It's all a contribution.
Were you abducted also, Gary, or either one of you?
Yeah, I told my wife I wouldn't say this. Yeah, I was at a very young age. I was abducted by hillbillies. And
you told me that before. I know, that's so funny.
Yeah. No,
They tried to change your consciousness too, didn't they?
Yeah. I'm sure we've all had our experiences. There's a lot of us that don't have awareness of it. It's kind of like they wipe our minds of it. And we're meant to forget it. But I can tell you this, don't be afraid. The tall grays are gone. They're not going to mutilate us anymore. And anyone that is abducted, it's there for your own good. It's for our good.
Right. It's upgrading. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Well, my experiences are incredibly personal and sacred within my own self. Gary and I are both walk-ins, and we are both from recent walk-ins from Sirius B Star Complex. And with the walk-in process, it's incredibly complicated. The birth soul leaves as it is contracted, and the spirit gets a used vehicle. The body is suddenly now for the new spirit to come into, and there is so much help needed to speed this up, because we're all here for a purpose. There are so many walk-ins that have recently come in from advanced civilizations to help with this. And so I go and talk with the ships. I go talk with those who are from the same planet. And I have woken up at night. I have a team, and I'm certainly not the only one. They help us with clearing out old patterns, with being able to move from what has held us back lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. They're going in even physical things that we have brought either from other lifetimes or stuff that has happened in this lifetime and that is holding us back. Our guides, our angels, our individual helper teams, there are intergalactics on those teams. So I have two Arcturians on the team and a short gray, where I would wake up at night and I would go, "Oh, hello, it's you. You're working on me." And the communication.
Did you have fear at first? I mean, was it always just easy for you?
That is trust. I discern, I feel, and I talk with my guides and go, okay, this is legitimate, right? This isn't just some being, some entity that's trying to attack or something, some darkness.
So you could kind of
Now-
feel in your heart.
Yes, I
trust
feel the
situation?
difference.
Yeah.
The bright light. And you know what is so fascinating? Even though we all have different levels of intelligence and consciousness levels, they are 1,000 times more intelligent than we are. So I've been just making jokes with them, and just there's this relationship that has formed, this incredible trust. It's like, oh, it's you guys. Thank you for helping me. And it's just that knowing that we're not all the humanoids as well, but not all that are here are human beings in the 3D. And this is such a concert of moving everything forward, of helping us getting into our power, our gifts, our higher awareness, bringing in the connection with our own spirit selves,
Do you guys believe that, with the things that are really on the verge of in our 3D reality, the wars that are really knocking on our doors pretty strongly, do you believe that there'll be actual intervention by the beings to stop that from happening? Or do you think they'll let this go as it's going to go and then help everybody to evolve their consciousness afterwards? What do you believe?
Yes, both.
Yeah.
Both?
Yes.
I'm gonna have to refer to Captain Picard and the Prime Directive from Star Trek. Yeah, they will step in as they're allowed to. There are certain things that have to take place in order for all of this to happen. We're going through a restructuring right now where we're seeing the downfall of the whole system.
Yes.
And astrologically, by the numbers, this is why our former president was brought into being, was to tear down this system.
Oh, without a doubt.
And he's done an incredible job. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So they will step in. I know they have shown what they can do. I can't remember when it was. I believe it was back in the 80s when they shut down every nuclear facility across the world simultaneously. Oh yeah, there's government paper trail saying that globally everything was shut down for several hours.
In the 80s.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that there was no explanation for it. Well, you're going to have a global blackout like that targeted, that specific. Somebody's flexing.
So the governments know this? They were aware of that? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I had read an interview with several of Nixon's aides. There were 4 of them, and they were telling the story of the intergalactics that were present in the White House constantly, that we were working with them. Of course, we all know that Werner von Braun brought over from Germany Operation Paperclip. They had interviewed him and said, "Where did you get your knowledge?" He said, "Well, reverse engineering of UFOs." He says, "That's how we devised our first rocket."
So I guess nuclear weapons would be prime on the list for helping us not use. And then of course the climate changing might be something else that would be, and that's what John Mack, when he went around and he did the interviews around the world, that was one of the top things on the list for him, was that these people said that when they were abducted, they heard from those that were abducting them that climate change, that the ruining of our environment and of our Mother Earth was something that we all needed to get educated on so we could stop that from happening and getting any worse.
Indeed. And thank you for bringing awareness to all of that, as has been happening in the press.
Yeah. As far as all of this shift, it's going to get messier. It's going to get quite ugly, but the system has to break down so that the new can be built. And as such, so many of us are still in survival from childhood, from everything that's happened, from things that have happened, recent disasters and all of that. Find your way back within, come within and find your center within, and that safety within, that nurturing of the self that is going to be so much more important. And trust there are millions and millions of angels here helping. There are millions and millions of intergalactics helping here. And the Divine Mother and Father are on to everything. Some stuff is going to be allowed to play out as it is. As Gary said, prime directive of free will of mankind as such.
Yes.
But there's also going to be limits where that's not supposed to go further than that. But there are so many people volunteering to leave. And I know that is hard in the personal sphere of loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
But we must remember with that they contracted, they were given the choice, would you like to leave now? As millions have been given that choice now. And they said, yes, please, I need to go somewhere else to heal or to do whatever I need to do for the evolution of my own soul. And so, as such, everything that looks so messy and dramatic from our 3D perspective is part of a bigger plan and must happen for the evolution of us as individuals and the planet. And as such, it's holding each other's hands as we go through the rocky phases and coming within, finding that safety within, and just trusting that, yeah, because it's dark right now doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. No, it's not a repetition of the Second World War and everything that went down with that.
Right.
It's different. The light is here and we're a part of that. Yeah, it's going to get dark, but don't freak out. Just find that within yourself, that talk with your guides, find that safety within.
Very well said. Thank you very much. And, in your own way, you're saying, the same things we're talking about today, which is ultimately, trust is important, and love and truth are what really run this universe multiverse, without a doubt.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. It's we have to choose between living love and living in fear, because they cannot exist at the same time in the same place.
Yes.
So choose that love. What's happening right now is we're finishing the foundation that was started. Oh, let's go all the way back to the first wave Blu-rays, or if you'd like to go back even further, the back in the late 1800s, the Age of Enlightenment. Mm-hmm. We're finishing that foundation on which the future is going to be built, with the understanding that there has to be chaos in order for order to be.
Exactly.
So we're seeing the chaos, and please understand, everyone, how important it is to be here at this time, and the fact that you chose to be here. You weren't chosen, you chose to be here, because you have something incredibly significant to add to all of this. We all have our role to play, as you had said, and indeed, play it well. Play it through love. Play it through understanding, grace, and mercy.
Well said by you too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lovely having you both on tonight. I hope you come back.
We would love to. Thank you so much.
Take good care of yourselves. Much love.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Bye. Well, that was certainly an eye-opener, wasn't it? Let me bring Deb on here with me. Hey, Deb.
That was so beautiful. This
That's
whole
so powerful.
show had
So powerful. A lot of things that I'm hesitant to say. A lot of things that I'm hesitant to say sometimes. They had the courage to just come right out and say, which I really appreciate. We're in some rough times, but it's really the bigger picture. It's all in order.
Yeah, I noticed myself for some reason right now feeling emotional.
Yeah.
I so resonated with everything that they said and everyone has said through this whole radio show. It's very enlightening. And, we just need to remember that, like Gary said, there's chaos before there's new order and the new earth. It's we're birthing a new earth and we're moving into a new golden age like no one has ever experienced before. And we just need to remember that. And what Neha said about, coming back to that safety and that love. And that's what helps me. It brings me to think about, that connection with the mother and the nurturing, and
Yeah.
how important, like what I was talking about with love and family, and how important it is for us to come together as a human family and, love each other, care for each other, help each other through these times. And like Gary was saying, we're also needed now. Our gifts are so needed now
Right.
to help our planet and each other and Mother Earth, and to and at the same time, it's so exciting.
Yeah,
I
that's right.
feel a lot of it. I feel a lot of excitement
Yeah, I do too.
about this bringing in of the new world, the new Earth. I'm going to say new Earth, new consciousness.
I think it's important to add that along with the love, truth is important too. And by truth, I mean that
Yes.
each person needs to be in touch with who they are as an individual, because the old ways of having unity in many different levels of being is to be the same as everybody else. And
Yes.
now with the Aquarian age, it's not being the same as everybody. It's everybody being true to who they are individually, and from that place, contributing to the whole, contributing to the unity of everything.
I agree. And like you said, it's the individual gifts within the whole. It's like each person has their puzzle piece. Each person has a puzzle piece of the whole. And we're all needed for that whole, for that new Earth, that new consciousness. And like you said, truth, Lauren touched on that about discernment. Discernment is so important. Truth, seeing what's real.
Yeah.
And truth and wisdom are so important. You're
Yes.
waving to someone.
Oh, wait, goodbye. Yeah, they're leaving, so I'm just saying.
Oh, okay.
Say goodbye.
So, it was so wonderful, all the guests today. So,
Yeah,
I
very
mean,
enlightening. I'm getting more and more of a sense of purpose on our show. I was mentioning it earlier this week to you, and I'm just feeling like, maybe one of the rules we've got is like to be an oasis as all these things come down. People are going to be all hearing all these horrible, fearful things, and we're just going to build a community of people here that are going to hold the love and the truth, so that we can all help make this together through this.
Yes. And I think it's going to be in our local communities too, and global, like this,
Exactly.
like global networks. And that's part of the Aquarian age too, is those large global networks, the internet, the fact that, we can have global connections and see each other, and have, there's going to be a lot. I think community is going to be a big thing. I mean, for years, I have to say, I have always seen that we're going to actually move much more into living in sacred community, not just in our separate houses, but like communities on the land, and communities where we might have our own dwelling, but we share like a garden. We share our resources. We grow our food together. We share our gifts and our abilities. And there's some really conscious, beautiful communities like that on the earth now. But for the new golden age and age of Aquarius, I see that coming.
Yes.
That more and more communities like that.
Let me add something else from the other standpoint too that I think is important. And that's, people now have authorities that they answer to, and more we're going to each have to turn to our own inner authority to get our personal truth, is through our intuition, through our hearts, through our minds, and through our souls, and not so much through some authority figure that tells you this is how you're supposed to think and this is how you're supposed to act. I think a lot of people are already doing that, breaking away from the programming that we've all had from our cultures and from our families, and realizing that if we can contact something deeper inside ourselves and in the universe, that way we're really connected and not separated through the domination of authority figures. So that's important too, is for people to come into their own authenticity and their own individuality and their own personal strength and empowerment. Not the old kind of power, which is my power over your power, but just my personal empowerment inside myself. And I think that's part of what's happening with the great feminine that's coming, is that the great feminine, more and more, if I can speak to it, doesn't have to go, oh yeah, whatever you say, yeah, that's nice, thank you, I'll do that. but it's coming in with much more power, saying, that's not what the feminine is. The feminine isn't a Barbie doll who agrees with everybody, but the feminine is, you know more about it than I do, Deb. I'm just saying that's what I see. Speak more to that.
Well, what I keep hearing over and over again, which has been a focus for the last couple of years that keeps coming through to me, is it's about sovereignty. It's that time now of us all coming into our sovereign divinity, that, like you said, there is no greater authority above us, outside of us, that we all can connect with source. And what is the greatest authority of the universe? It's the universe. It's the universal laws, the spiritual laws. And I believe, and I know a lot of elders do that I work with in the heart of the world, that we actually our governments need to be governed not by politics, but by the universal laws of our universe, the spiritual laws once more.
Yeah.
The spiritual laws. And it makes me think of the children of the law of one, those beings of us, including us, who have for lifetimes been walking that path of oneness, and to honor that we are all one, and that we all have that ability to connect with source, with the earth. We don't need an intermediary.
Right.
Even though we need help, obviously we need people to heal, and we need teachers sometimes, but we ultimately have to come back to our own inner knowing.
Right. We don't need gurus that we give our power away to anymore.
Exactly. But we might learn, we're all learning from each other.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be giving our power away, because we know that we have that inner throne.
Yeah.
We have that throne of the divine within us.
Some of what the founders of this country came up with were actually wonderful universal laws. Like everybody is free, liberated.
Right.
And it's the people, of the people, by the people, and for the people. These are wonderful things. It's not the values of the country right now that don't live it out. But those were taken from a universal source, I believe, to believe that way. And I think we need to come back to that as an American family. I
think you're right. And I think, there's been some of those governing principles. Things have gotten out of control, we've lost our alignment with those things.
Well, the desire for wealth and fame is taking people out of alignment.
Yeah. Greed
More specifically.
Greed and all those things that we're going to move beyond now. And that's where moving into sacred community and cooperation and sharing our resources and making all our decisions from, is this for the highest good of all beings and all life forms? Is this decision I'm making in my life serving all life, serving our planet, serving the mother, serving the father, all that is? Are we living in that alignment with what we know in our higher selves? I think a lot of it is living in our higher selves too.
Mm-hmm.
Really connecting with our higher self, our divine presence, because that divine presence, that higher source, the higher source and self within us is connected.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mother, we also need that energy, the loving, nurturing, compassionate energy of the mother to help, soothe the wounds and heal our inner children, so we can remember our divinity, the divine child within us, and come back to that and live in Christ consciousness. I think that's where we're moving, is to live in that Christ consciousness.
Without a doubt. And we also need to, on the other end of things, have the courage to be true to how we were made and who we are and what we came here to do as individuals, to pitch into the role.
That's the authenticity, and that's the honoring our gifts.
Exactly.
And honoring our gifts.
And not to be programmed to be something that contributes to the corporate government structure that wants to use us for what they need us for.
Well, I think it all goes back to our individual lives and the choices we make every day, and how we live our lives, and the choices we make, within us in our own lives, that helps That's going to help take the power away from those outer powers,
Yeah.
right? When we can make different choices, I think, in our own lives.
Yes.
And we won't feel dominated. I mean,
No,
it
we
has to
won't
do
feel-
with liberating ourselves from any kind of domination or control
Right. From
outside of
making
ourselves.
ourselves into something that we're being molded into being instead of being ourselves.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
we might have to change perspectives from the sky back into spiritual renaissance before too long, because it feels like our old spiritual renaissance
I think so.
messages are coming back.
I think so. I think you're right. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Astrological overview. I know our last guest must not have gotten through.
Well, I think no, he didn't get through. I guess Australia, we didn't get to it. There's so much we all had to talk about that it's okay. But yeah, stay aware starting on the 14th when Mercury goes retrograde, and then there's a very powerful full moon on the 17th, and Uranus goes direct the next day. So a lot of things shaking up economically, most likely, and most likely within Ukraine and with Russia. Those things are really going to come to a head that week, the week of the 14th through the 24th. So just be aware that, stay on your track, stay with what you know is bringing you to love and to your own personal truth, and everything will be fine. The chaos is coming, as Nia said, and she's right. The chaos is coming. So that's how really positive change happens, by the way, is through chaos. That's how creativity happens, is through chaos. When things stay the same like this all the time, there's no change, there's no movement, there's no creativity, there's no life.
And it's interesting. My grandmother, wise as she was, always said to me, crisis is opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's in the I Ching.
Oh, yeah,
too.
it is in the I Ching. That's right.
In the I Ching, crisis is opportunity for a change.
That's right.
And I think that, I think we're in that, I guess Lauren's leaving now. Bye, Lauren. So let us just remember that whatever we see in our outer world happening is that it's part of the change. Part of the change. It's part of the transformation, and we don't need to be in fear. And as the Hopis said in that beautiful transmission, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Yeah. And we need, and they say the time of the lone wolf is over. Yeah. Gather yourselves.
Yeah.
Know your source of water, know the earth, know your people. And so I think it's, it's very exciting. I'm excited from the show.
Well, that's good.
This, the soul tribes coming together, the people coming together now for this beautiful new expression. And as Gary was talking about the ascension of Gaia, as we evolve into our higher dimensional beings, into our light bodies, Gaia, we're doing it with Gaia. We're not separate. Gaia and us, we're going through this ascension evolutionary process together.
And I want to thank everyone today. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll be back on what does that make it then? The 15th, the 22nd with the show, 1 p.m. Arizona time. And I want to thank today Ron Damico, Lauren Perrault, Deborah Knighton Tallarico, myself, Leo Knighton Tallarico, and Gary and Neha, our new guests who were wonderfully enlightening today. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, everyone. Infinite love and many blessings.
Bye.
Bye.